All right, we got a million questions and not a lot of time. Bill had a great point. I don't believe any of our panelists are going to turn into pumpkins at midnight tonight. They're going to be around, so if we don't get to your questions, please feel free to ask at the reception tonight, especially after a drink or two. You might get a better answer. I'll try to group some of the questions we have because we have a bunch. A lot of them are on cost in two major areas. Maintenance. How are the costs of maintaining these engines, these trucks, different from maintaining a diesel fleet? Anybody?
Well, I'll jump in and talk about Spark, and then maybe Jonathan wants to follow up on HPDI. From our point of view, Spark represents some different touch points, most namely the plugs. In a typical application, that might reflect about 1 cent per running mile, give or take. I think the consideration has to be given by the fleet is what is your cost of diesel emissions that we're now stripping away? The customers I talk to on road fleets tell me that the cost of diesel emissions as we know it at the 2010 level is about 3 to 4 cents a running mile. So to a certain extent, yeah, maybe we're adding a little bit of maintenance cost with plugs and those sort of things, but we're also deleting some costs associated with the all-popular diesel emissions.
And with regards to the HPDI product, we do carry the diesel emissions. We have also some additional filters that require changes, but we've done our best to match all of the maintenance intervals with our engine with the Cummins ISX diesel. So there's no interim intervals for maintenance, so the same cycles you'd change oil on and everything else. In addition to that, we've got some fleets that are now in very, very high mileage territory with whom we've done chemical sampling of their oil and extended their oil change intervals. So getting more life out of the same oil is also very beneficial. But I think a good number to use is approximately 2 cents a mile for the filters and other maintenance items that I mentioned.
Howard, if I might add, on the HPDI product, obviously if we're only injecting 5% diesel, we do not need a diesel particulate filter of the size and area that you're used to on a 100% diesel engine. So there are possibilities to refine the exhaust after-treatment systems on the high-pressure direct injection engine. So we think that's going to take away a lot of that pushback on that particular product.
Okay. Along with that, are any major changes required in the maintenance shop of a fleet in order to add these trucks to your primarily diesel fleet?
Is that shop upgrades, Howard?
Well, I think we should let Steve take the floor because, Steve, yeah. I also read that manual that you put together, which is fantastic. Our kudos to Navistar on that one. We stole some of that with pride. I hope you don't.
That's fine. I would say that the biggest thing you have to do is work with the dealers, with dealers or yourself, and make sure that you have somebody advising you who's knowledgeable about the fuel source and particularly local fire regulations. It varies by state by state. In the state of Texas, you actually have to work with the Rail Commission, so and your local fire marshal. There's really no standardized approach nationwide, so make sure you look into that. Feel free to use the published documentation, including the one that we provided today as a good guideline. But the thing to remember is you really need to, whether or not you're looking at LNG or CNG or even other alternative fuels such as propane, you just really have to look at your lighting. You have to look at any heating sources in the service facility. You have to make sure you have good airflow, and those costs to implement those changes are not that extreme. In some cases, what you may find is you're going to have to segregate the service facility or the service bays for the natural gas product from the normal service bays that you might use with either a gasoline or a diesel product.
Excellent. Several questions on where does the $35,000 to $50,000 upcharge come, other than to your bottom lines, of course, when you go to a natural gas vehicle, and what can we do to get it down?
I think that's an excellent question for comments.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took that long to get to this question. But yeah, certainly, obviously, I mean, if you look at from the engine to tank breakdown, I would say, and I'd love to get the feel for the group here, but 70% tank, 30% engine. As we go from forward, certainly I think this is part of the overriding issue, and we go from the volume we're now to where we think we might be. Certainly there's efficiencies to be gained, certainly from the manufacturing process. You know, from what we do now online, as compared to a regular diesel, there's not a lot of difference. But, you know, when you look at bracketry and other types of things where we can go from fabrications to castings and other things, it takes a volume to get to that point. So it's one of those things as we continue to grow as an industry. I think certainly market forces, competition, all those things will play out. You know, and especially on the 12-liter, you know, we're kind of early on the process on that, and I'm sure collectively as a group we'll be kind of sorting that out over the next coming months for sure before we hit SOP.
Excellent. Anybody want to add? Steve?
In all fairness, I think that the price of the engine is just one component, and actually the engine prices have come down somewhat just in the last few years. The other big cost element is in the fuel tanks, and there's differences between the liquid natural gas tank cost and the compressed natural gas tank cost. It's a relatively immature market. You don't have a lot of competition, and because of that, and the volumes have been relatively low. So the companies that are moving into that market have had to invest a lot of money without a lot of return. And so as the volumes do increase, I think you're going to see the tank prices get much more affordable as well. Plus you have the volume is going to it's going to encourage other customers to move into that segment as well, or other suppliers to move into that segment as well.
Do we need some kind of government incentive to push this market into a volume level that would allow all kinds of costs to come down?
It doesn't hurt if the government leads, but I think it's a one-word answer. What we need is scale. We all need to move. We need volume.
Yeah.
And are we going to get to scale? I mean, I noticed there weren't a lot of projections here.
I think the scale will be there, and it's been talked ad nauseum, as long as the spread remains there on the price of the fuel. This business case is based on the price of the fuel, and as long as it stays, I think we're going to see the volume accelerate.
What levels do we need to get to start seeing natural gas-powered vehicle prices not in the same general neighborhood as diesel? We've talked now, we're about 2 or 3% right now, natural gas versus diesel. Where do we have to get to for you to be able to get costs down?
I think it's a couple things too, just for those numbers. It's not, price is a big factor of it, but it's range in what applications we can serve. So as the ISB and then the 15-liter come in and we have more product coverage combined with the infrastructure, certainly when we have spec choices, you know, right now with offerings that we were able to do with the ISLG, automatic transmissions, going forward we'll have the ability to go manual transmission. So there are spec trade-offs where we can get the cost down. I think certainly from the speccing of the tank side of things, it's more of an individual view of how much fuel do I actually need? Do I need the maximum amount of fuel to take some costs out of my spec as well? So I think there's efficiencies to be gained there just in the speccing process alone.
Okay. Anybody want to add anything?
Just maybe on the engine side,
Sure.
Howard, you know, if you look at it from a CWI perspective, Cummins Westport perspective, most of our business historically has been in transit bus and refuse, which are both fairly small markets from an automotive segment. So our volumes have been in the, you know, few thousand a year range. They've grown nicely a bit since then, but they have not been big volumes. The Class A truck market is, you know, so much larger. You know, whether it's 200 or 300,000 a year, depending on where you draw the line, but it's 20 or 30 times larger. And so a relatively modest share in that segment gets us into some very nice volumes where we can start to see production efficiencies, supplier efficiencies, all those things. So we very much, you know, would like to get to where the engine, the cost differential between the diesel engine and the gas engine is not really a big factor in your decision. And we know how to do that at scale, but it's not, we don't need 50% of the Class 8 trucks to get to where we've got a scale that makes sense and we can start to get some better efficiencies than we've had.
Howard, and I might add, you know, competition is a wonderful thing. And in the past, you know, we've been relatively small numbers, whether you're looking at the truck OEs, whether you're looking at the fuel suppliers, whether you're looking at tank manufacturers and upfitters and so forth. Relatively small numbers. I think, you know, as we start to see people move into this business, whether it's on the fueling side, the truck side, competition is the great equalizer. And I think as a result, we have already seen and will continue to see a progression of reduced costs.
Excellent. Speaking of cost, let's go on the other side. Obviously, truck resale prices are critical for fleets. There is no market history on the resale of over-the-road, natural gas-powered Class 8 trucks. Are you offering residual guarantees, trade-in value guarantees for your early adopters?
We have both. We have some data points on used truck sales. As a matter of fact, I had some conversations with some folks today about some used trucks that are in the marketplace. We will soon or very quickly go to test the market as we take the 12-liter and begin to cycle out some. They'll replace a lot of 9-liters that are currently in activity. But, you know, not a lot of data points, Howard, but we do have them. And I think the residual and the demand has been very strong for used trucks. So if anybody is thinking that this is somehow, an albatross, don't. There is a very viable market out there for used equipment. Why? Because people like you want to get into the business for the first time, you want to test it, but maybe you don't want to buy new. Maybe you want to test it with a 2-3-year-old truck. That's where a lot of the used truck demand is going to come from going forward. So in the question about residual guarantees, yeah, early days, but we've seen some of the leasing companies enter this space. Certainly Ryder Penske and our captive leasing company PacLease have entered into some leases with residual backstops. It's early days, but we're moving in that direction.
We all agree. I see a lot of heads nodding. I want to make sure we're...
I would add to that we're investing heavily in front of the demand curve, Howard, so there's tremendous pressure on us to continue to move the business case forward.
Okay, so you're offering great deals, so everybody ought to see you after, right?
I didn't say that.
Oh, you guys don't listen to this question. Currently, every one of you offers your own diesel engines, in addition to the products from Cummins and others. Currently, none of you offer your own natural gas engines in North America, although at least one of you does somewhere else. What do the volume levels have to get to before suddenly we're going to see branded engines, natural gas engines from the Ford truck OEMs?
I'll speak from the Daimler side of things. Right now, they're in our operational plan, there's not a trigger point for a number that we need to get to that. We're certainly happy with the coverage that we have with the Cummins ISL, GIS X12, and then 15 and on as those come online. So I think it's a situation where when we look where we're going to spend our product development money, is that money well spent on our own engine? At this point, we say no, it's not a technical hurdle, it can be done, but right now we have a very strong, solid partnership, and that's certainly what we want to, right now, plan to continue.
Okay. Come on, I'm going to ask.
Hey, Cummins has been a great company or a great partner for PACCAR over the years. So they've done a great job at developing great new product. We continue to look at it, quite honestly, and I think you're on the right track. Volvo can probably address it best. Mm-hmm. I think from a proprietary point of view, do you now create the world platform with gas that not only will make sense here in North America, but you can start to also use that same engine in other areas of the globe?
We enjoy, as the others, an excellent partnership with Cummins. They have the product available. They appear to have the horsepower ratings and coverage covered now. And for us, it makes the most sense to partner up with Cummins and press forward in the gas business. And other decisions will be made as the market develops, if it develops.
Okay.
I would echo that statement, but I would also say that, at International, we have a significant stake, not only in the engine business and primarily in medium duty, but also on the big bore side. And we have explored our own proprietary technology. We've looked at diesel pilot injection on the big bore side. I've not done anything conclusively with that. We've had our own natural gas version of some of our own engines. What I can tell you that right now it's simply a matter of resources and focus. And anybody who's been following Navistar for the last 6 months knows that we have our plate full right now with other things, but that's not to say that we're not going to explore our opportunities in the future. You know, we're in the process of releasing Cummins engines across our big bore product lineup. We're also in the process of adding SCR onto all of our North American diesel engines, and we expect to have that process completed about mid-year, and then we're going to reassess the situation.
All right, one more quick one. I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap. We've got spark-ignited CNG engines. We've got a dual fuel, a mixed fuel compression engine. Volvo's talked specifically about dimethyl ether as a possible fuel. Are you guys working on engines or concepts of other fuels, derivatives of natural gas or otherwise?
Well, I think we all work on things, you know, advanced technologies, things such as microturbines and range extenders and those kind of technologies that I think make sense. In the heavy truck world, you know, plug-in electric, as we know it today, really is not going to pull 80,000 pounds probably in my lifetime. So we continue to look at different type of applications, but again, you know, with natural gas, this is a very mature technology. It is diesel technology, and we have this abundant resource. So I think natural gas is going to carry us a long, long ways before we're off into the land of hydrogen or ether or whatever.
We've talked extensively with our dealers about the proverbial third fuel, if you will. And I can't see anything at this stage that would even come close to the viability of natural gas. And we've looked at almost everything else out there. But natural gas is a very good fit. And that's not to say there aren't some other things that are potentially good fits later on. But we really believe that natural gas is probably the most viable alternative out there, and that's why we're putting our resources into that.
Anybody, anything else?
Well, certainly, I think there's a great piece of work that was done, this National Petroleum Council study that you know, is publicly available, where you know, the Energy Secretary asked this group, and it was led by, you know, senior executives from energy companies and manufacturing companies and so on. It was a huge body of work, and they were given the task of looking at what's fuel use going to be in 2050. And they did an awful lot of work on that, and the conclusions around heavy-duty trucking were very much probably about half diesel and half natural gas. And they didn't really see anything electric or other fuels that had the opportunity to commercialize and compete with what we have today with those two options. And so it's good reading. It's a big, long study, but there's a summary you can read, and I think it gives you a good idea of where the industry could go.
Excellent. I want to thank you all for doing a great job. I wish we had more time. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of your questions, but they're going to be around.